Hey tribes, happy April. Hopefully you're feeling like spring has sprung. I'm certainly enjoying a bit of sunshine. It's Monday morning here for me. We want to touch base on a couple of things in the last couple of weeks we've been talking about. If you missed 2 Sundays ago, really encourage you to catch up on that. One of the things I was talking about was this idea of, I don't know for you parents out there with small kids, but for me I have between 1 and 3 shadows at any given time whenever I'm at home, and quite often one of the twins especially will be following me about no matter what I'm doing with this question, can I help? The reality is they're not very helpful. Usually if I'm trying to put up a curtain rod or drill a hole for a picture or something like that, I give them wee jobs, they love it. But one of the things I find really interesting about God is I feel like that relationship is almost inverted, where we get followed around by our kids and they're asking to help, but actually they're not really much help, but it's great to get them involved. Whereas actually when it comes to what God is doing in the world, I feel like His question to us all the time is, hey, do you want to help? Hey, I'd love you to help. Come and help. And really that's the whole point of what we're trying to do here in Lagan Valley Vineyard, is join in with what Jesus is doing in our city and in the world. And you know, one of the things that can really help us in that, and we have been trying to talk really intentionally about this a lot since Christmas, is how we're being formed into the character of Jesus. The reality is the more like Jesus we become, the more able and effective we are in joining in with what God is doing all around us. You see, our commitment and even our passion, they won't get us there. So the question is, who are we becoming? And one of the things I notice, in I guess being a pastor, minister, whatever word you want to put on that, is sometimes we can feel like the responsibility for change and transformation is God's. That our job is to put ourselves in places like church, our job is to go to conferences, maybe even to show up at things like tribes, and when we do that, then change will happen. And I don't want to burst any bubbles, but in my experience that's just not the case. The reality is all of the hundreds of tiny little choices and decisions and habits and priorities that fill your life will determine who you're becoming. And so we've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks about this idea that the key to transformation is humility. That actually the doorway that we want to walk through is that of humility, that it's only humble people that change. It's only somebody that says, do you know what, actually I need God, I need people, and I need change. That provides a bit of the catalyst. And that there are some things we can do to prioritize that, to cultivate that. That text in Philippians 2, from Philippians 2, that talks about us having the same mindset as that of Christ Jesus. Well, that mindset is one of humility. And humility looks like don't pretend, don't presume, don't push. Love you to talk a bit tonight maybe about where you are in that kind of matrix of pretense or presumption or even sometimes pushing. And this is a wonderful question to ask and reflect on. How humble do you really think you are? And have some banter with that in the room, that'd be fun. And then yesterday we were talking about this idea of focus and distraction. That we really do live in an age of chronic distraction, and that's a problem, because what we give our attention to grows. And if all we're giving our attention to is going to sound like a contradiction, but if all we're giving our attention to is distraction, that we do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of the other, constantly being interrupted by our phones, it's very difficult for us to get any traction in any direction. But if we, as the writer of the Hebrews implores us to fix our eyes on Jesus, focus on Him, then we actually are part way there in terms of how we actually work this thing out. We talked on Sunday past about this idea that practicing the way of Jesus leads us into the truth of Jesus, which leads us into the life of Jesus. That it's that sequence, that sometimes it's not more information we need, it's more practice. Sometimes it's actually in the act of faith, of behaving and doing the ways of Jesus, that we discover that they're true. And I don't know if any of you saw the Patrick Kilty documentary that was on a couple of weeks ago, but there was a fascinating conversation with a guy in Londonderry who was blinded by a plastic bullet on forgiveness. And really what he articulated was that he discovered freedom on the other side. And that's just true, that it's when we practice the way of Jesus, we discover it's true and it leads us into life. So I wonder how your conversations went this weekend. What are you focused on? What's distracting you? And how ruthless are you prepared to be to actually order your life around the things that you articulate that matter? This is a hugely exciting time for us as a community as we continue to press into what it means to really follow Jesus in our everyday, ordinary lives. Hope you have an amazing time wherever you are talking about this stuff. Please pray for each other, encourage each other, challenge each other, and be blessed as you do all of that. See you this weekend.